Okay, so this is part 2 of the SHEKERE making video series, To Whom It May Concern. If you've stumbled upon this video, this is going to be brief, kind of a talking point thing, not so much of a demonstration of tying knots. That could happen, but what I want to do is just sort of continue. This is kind of hard because I keep thinking, well, who cares, but I'm going to say it anyway. So in the last video, I said everything about that. So if you look at that video, just to get a start, then that'll make more sense about what I'm going to say now, and I'll just kind of continue. So before I started putting the beads on today, this is so funny. I've made so many of these, and the fun part that's always exciting and that I pay attention to with the science of sound and volume on the gourds and everything, and why I pay a lot of attention to it, that's what I want to describe now, because I was like worried that I wouldn't be able to make this instrument have the same kind of volume that were on her other instruments. So she had these two other maracas, and the action, the weight, everything, the volume was pretty loud, because I know she plays in a lot of percussion ensembles and drum circles and stuff. So when I saw these gourds first come in the mail, I thought, oh, they're so small, they're going to be too quiet. Like, I thought they'd be too quiet. So my job then becomes how to leverage the weight, the texture, and the tone of the beads. This is really about nuance, really minuscule details, like the way the string affects the overall action of the net, the way the size and the weight of the beads affects the sound and everything. So to try to describe that, if these are all glass beads, if these were plastic beads, it would be a completely different scenario. It would be a completely different sound and a completely different weight. And the weight is what's interesting about sound, is that what is weight? We measure it in a certain way, but isn't it interesting that weight and gravity affect sound, and therefore affect the vibration that reaches your ears and your body when you hear it. So as I'm doing the first few rows, right, it's always a surprise to me. Each instrument's different. So as I'm doing the first few rows, and when I get this, that's what tells me how to finish the rest of it. When I had done this first the black beads there, and I first shook it, it has kind of a high pitch, right? What I call high pitch compared to what? And that's because the gourd itself, the bulb of the gourd, is small. And so it just automatically is offering kind of like a high pitch, like a little baby gourd. If this gourd was huge, like a big shekere, like that one over there, it would have a totally lower, let me see if I can use the right timbre, it would just be lower sounding. So I'm stopping right now. I figured, let me just show the fact that I'm not worried at all anymore about when she gets these instruments back, she'll be able to play them just like the other ones that were bigger. But because of the use of these beads and the flexibility of the string, the action's going to be perfect. They'll play really nice. And as I was saying, if these were all plastic beads and you would do this, you would have a whole different sound, and you may not have the type of weight with lightweight plastic beads that would allow for her, when she plays these, to have a certain kind of action to it. Why am I breaking this down in this way? Because when I started making these, I just, how it is, you just start noticing things. And then, spending hours and hours and hours tying knots, and making a lot of mistakes, like making shekeres that didn't really play right, Or like in the beginning, I used to use these glass beads that were from India. They used to break, and they were too loud. And I mean, I've making shekere nets that just didn't work that well. I torn them apart. So it got to be, because I was doing this for a living to make money, so I didn't have to work cleaning houses, you know. I mean, you know, I came up in the thing that said, do what you love and money will follow. So I kept doing shekeres because I loved sitting around in the house or wherever and making them. But because I was selling these to different people, you know, when you sell something, you want to make sure that it's going to last, that it's going to have these characteristics to it, you know. And then I noticed, like in the 90s, I used to sell to a music store in Seattle called John's Music, and he would buy a half a dozen, and then 3 months later he'd sell out, and then I'd bring a half a dozen more, and he'd sell out, he'd sell out. And the musicians there that were buying them were commenting to John that the instruments worked really well. And that's when I started paying really close attention to, not just that the beats are pretty or close together, but the action of the instrument. So that encouraged me even more to just keep paying attention to those small little details. Now, of course, you could take this and put any old beat around it and not think about any of this stuff I'm saying, and you could still have an instrument. Is the thing. It's just like anything. You could take some cloth and make a pair of pants. You got a pair of pants. But if you take a silk cloth and make pants, and you have silk pants, you know, there's a whole different vibration with the material that you use. I guess that's what I'm hitting at, because it really does matter, and every little thing you do. Plus, the maker of an object, they're putting their energy into that object. So if I buy a shekere that's made with tired slave labor in Africa or Latin America, which could be, and when I say tired slave labor, I don't mean any offense, but if I have run across distributors of so-called ethnic items like clothes and things like this, and they had families that they would go to they'd leave America and go to these countries and pay these other families to produce wonderful art and then bring it back to the States and sell it 3 times higher. Hopefully this isn't happening anymore, but I was appalled when I discovered how these retailers in America would go to third world countries and get their art and bring it up and pay them hardly anything. And, you know, like an item like this, maybe somebody in Africa would get the equivalent of $10. Bring it up here and you see it online for $40. Well, then I'm in America, I make the thing, and I'm at a show selling this for $100. And people are going, well, what, you know, like right now, you can go online and buy a shekere for $150. To me, it's like, they're worth a heck of a lot more than that. You know, if you think of the time, you know, so all my life making these, I'm getting $10 an hour when you narrow it down, or even less than that. And then having to explain to people why these are worth way more on so many levels than they're given credit for. And in terms of, like, based upon the financial needs of American people and all that, or the time you put into something. Like if I charge $20 an hour for all my time making this is going to be $100. But look at the size. Oh, it's a rattle. So if I put this online to sell, or I'm at a show or something like that, you know, most people in this culture in America here just turn their cheek if it costs that much money. Like if it costs more than $40. You know, so I've always had to take money out of the equation, except that I needed it to pay my bills and stuff. Right now, I don't need the money, so I'm just making these. I'm going to give them to her as a donation because I don't need money. And part of my life work on this planet is how to live without a lot of money, and I'm pretty good at that. But at the same time, you know, you got to have money to do stuff. But anyway, so I'm going to finish this with other colors, and by the time it's done, it's going to look way bigger than this. Like, it's really something. It's like you take this naked gourd and then you put clothes on it, basically, and then it's all fancy. Like if you're a dancer, you might want to wear a lot of clothes as you dance, so the clothes themselves will move with your with your movements and enhance your movements. Whereas if you dance with just a leotard or nothing on, it's a whole different kind of dance. So that's how it is with this. And also, if I were to, like, I could have taken this gourd or any other, I gotta pull that out, and in that case, see to pull this out? If it doesn't shake out, or what I'll use is a pair of pliers and pull out the loose stuff, just to say. So, anyway, like I could take this gourd and fill it up with tapioca or corn or whatever and make it a maraca, but there's just something, I hesitate to use the word magic, but there is something really nice about incorporating these diamonds, which is what they are, incorporating the net of beads, and when you learn how to play, what you're actually doing is controlling, you got hundreds of beads that are hitting this gourd at one time. And, I think later on, after I do this series of how-to stuff, at some point I'll make some videos about playing and kind of ramble through that. Sherry, one of my teachers, mentioned one time that your job when you play an instrument like this is to control the beads as they hit the gourd. You got to control 1,000 or hundreds of beads that are hitting this gourd at one time, and it's not even as easy as you think. But I'll show that in another video. But anyway, the point being that these are going to be nice and loud, and I know she's going to be happy with them, so I'm going to keep going. And if I had my camera set up, I would just film myself making knots, and if I knew how to high speed a video, that would be cool. But, I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I just wanted to, I think this will just be the final video about this sort of net making. Or what I'll do is I'll make a third video when I get to the bottom part and when it's all finished. And then I'll show you guys how I tie it off. And once again, you can go online and find these, but they're very rare. Just like gold is rare. And what I discovered when I used to teach and do workshops, they were very popular and the instruments would sell, and I always had people coming along, but then when I stopped doing that public work, it fades out, it just stops. Like the shekere is not a big deal, it's just an instrument here and there. So whether or not I'm the person to continue or someone else does, it's an open market, guys, for exposing the world to the use of percussion. We could talk a lot about that too, about how 3D percussion instruments open up a lot of spiritual gateway. I don't want to say, just open up a lot of frequential gateways. And in ancient times, I'm sure that's how they were used, and why they're important today to revive. So when I go back into full operation there and we're playing music again, if that happens the way it used to, because right now things are real different, but if and when that happens, then those teachings would come into play. Like when you play shekere, it's really loud. A lot of people in the culture I'm in here don't like it. It irritates them. It's too loud. They plug their ears. So I'm getting ready to move someplace where I won't bother anyone making noise. But also with sounds like this, you have to, there's a medicinal quality to percussive sound and to rattles. There's a whole science involved with that. This is why some people love hearing traditional music that involves shakers and drums and things like this. There's a whole science about why and how your physical body has to be receptive to the frequencies of these sounds, otherwise it's irritating to people. So like if I when I used to teach a shekere class, one time I had 30 people they all had shekeres in their hand at one time. There's also a video I saw on YouTube recently of a church in Nigeria, and there was, I'm not sure it's on my playlist, but anyway, this church, all the people in the church there, while the music was going on, every member in the church had a shekere in their hand, and they were all playing a one through the whole thing. All the people, there were like over 100 people, everyone with the shekere. This was in Africa, in some part of Nigeria. I just cried watching that, because that's exactly like the right use of it, in this certain way. And I know that the hidden knowledge of ancient sound technique and all, as it relates to African culture, was being revived in that church, with the people using this instrument. And if I was there, you know, it's something you don't talk a lot about loosely. Like in American culture, we always have to talk and define and write everything down. In other, like in my experience with African music, a lot of the information isn't written down. It isn't orated. Like what I'm saying here about sound and weight and volume and shape and geometry, but you know, I'm just sort of, you know, putting words to this science that to me personally has been a science, as I've been sitting here for years making these, you know, and then walking outside in America and thinking, well, who cares? You know, who's really going to care? And no one is going to care unless somebody kind of spells things out or brings it out. So this is why in a class where you're teaching the traditional rhythms and how to move the net and the beads, when you teach that, or when I've done that and other people have done that, it's not as easy as it seems, you know. And so, like I say, there is an audience interested in this activity, especially now. Everyone's been online using their hands on a keyboard for so long, and there's circulation problems. I mean, you know, these instruments will take care of so much of your physical ailments. You know, I say that speaking for myself, I suppose. But that's the joy involved in when you make something that helps somebody else in the physical world enhance, you know, their muscles, enhance their left-right brain balance situation, you know, enhance their coordination, their confidence. This instrument really is about confidence, because I think I said this before, like if you're in a music group, like a drumming group or whatnot, and if you have one single shekere player there, every sound that this makes overpowers and cuts through all the drumming. So that shekere player has a huge responsibility to hold that rhythm really steady, because like if you're playing a drum and you hit it kind of off, you know, well, your fellow drummers can, you know, you can jump back in and disguise it a little bit if you're playing disciplined parts and all that. But if you're playing shekere and you're off, it's like, it's off, and it's obvious that it's off. I learned the hard way. But anyway, that's for another how-to play lesson. So I just wanted to show you guys that you know, even I'm not totally surprised, but I'm really glad that these are going to work, even though they're smaller than what she had. And I haven't made one in about a year and a half. I've been sort of out of the loop of it, and I thought I wasn't going to make them anymore. So I'm having a lot of fun, because, you know, you sit here and you just tie knots, and it's almost like total meditation, except it's not, except you have to keep your eyes open. So that's the only difference. Okay, so I hope that helps somebody or not, and it helps me to get it out on a video so I don't ever have to talk about it again, and I can move on to other things once I've shared this with the world in this manner. This is very satisfying to me. Whether anyone sees the video or not, at least it's available. So, and you know, maybe somebody will even decide to go into the shekere business if they want to do this for a living. There is an audience you can create for yourself by making them. And just to say why there aren't too many of us doing this, yeah, I might as well put this part in there. I've talked about this before, but gourds are, you almost have to work outside with them. The dust could be toxic. Some people are really flaming allergic to gourd dust, you know, the dust that comes out of here. And the other thing is, I've taught a lot of people how to make the nets, and people get bored, you know, so it's not for everybody. The person that taught me spent a lot of time in prison, solitary confinement. I think that's where he learned to make them. So if you're somebody who likes to sit around a lot and do nothing else but sit still, this is a good occupation to have, because it's like sewing or, you know, any of the detail arts and crafts. It forces you to just sit still hour after hour, and I would say for myself it became kind of addictive, like meditation, because it just forces you to sit still and focus on making diamonds or triangles kind of thing. So you can read into that too. But anyway, yeah, because this time next year I hope to have a little gourd farm happening where I can just mainly grow and sell, and these videos will be up for teaching. But as far as sitting around, and I remember one day I think I made 5 in one day, small chicories, but the time it would take to make them, and then to the effort to sell them for what they were worth. You know, I did that for many years, and I don't really want to do that again. I don't feel like that's really what I want to keep doing. Oh, make some more. Like another friend of mine the other day just said, oh, I want another one, I'll pay you to make one. And I'm like, well, I'm not growing them right now. As soon as I'm growing them, maybe I'll make them again. So anyway, everybody pray that I get my gourd farm going on, so so that I can grow my own again and not have to struggle to find ones, and then have, you know, like once again have people come out to where I'm at to just learn the whole thing. So that's my earthly desire and passion to do these, and there you have it. Okay, well, have a nice day and happy Thanksgiving.